In this video, I want to demonstrate how to use Renoise Redux. Renoise Redux is a fairly unknown VST instrument, and its purpose is to bring the power of tracker DAWs to more traditional DAWs. Tracker DAWs, their main difference, and it was so more in the past, that they are more sample oriented, while traditional DAWs are more MIDI oriented. The lines these days are a bit more blurred. Tracker DAWs like Renoise can use VST instruments, and Ableton and others have powerful sample features, but still there's a bunch of stuff that are pretty easy to do with something like Renoise, and a lot more complex to do with Ableton without specialty plugins. And Redux tries to bridge this gap. So when you open the plugin, the first thing you get is this piano roll, which doesn't do anything at this moment. Almost the entire program is inside the editor tab. Let's open that. Here I can load samples, which is the base of the program. In advance, I recorded myself playing the mouth harp a bit. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's hear this. Alright, so I have a bunch of takes which I want to slice up and trigger independently. In Redux, I can try to automatically slice the takes. So this button automatically creates slices, and this determines the sensitivity. I'm going with 0 for now. Let's see if that works. Alright. Here on the left you can see the samples I have loaded. The top one is the original sample, and the following ones are the slices. So let's see what we got. Alright, a few mistakes, but overall not bad. You can see this is slice 1, this is slice 2, slice 3 and 4 are on top of each other, so I can right click slice 4 and delete it. Slice 5 and 6 are on top of each other. I'll delete slice 6. It also missed the slice here, which I can add manually by clicking this button. Now I can move this, and if this is turned on, Renoise will try to snap the slice to a 0 crossing, meaning where the waveform crosses this line here. Yeah, this looks okay. I'm zooming in and out using the mouse scroll. Let's see what we've got. Alright, this is a pretty good start. Now, I have here a list of the slices, and they're all attached to the original sample. I don't really want to have the original sample because I'm not ever going to use it by itself, but I can't get rid of it because the slices are attached to it. So what I can do is I can detach them by converting them to samples by right-clicking and destructively render slices. Now they're independent. I can delete the original sample, and I just have my slices. You can see here on the right the key zones that are associated with each slice. So the top one is associated to C3. If I click C3, it'll trigger C sharp, sharp. I can edit this in this key zone tab here. So I can move this around. You see that it affects this. I can expand it. Usual key mapping stuff, key zone stuff. I think I'll leave this as is. There's no associated with this. It's just index. Alright, what's next? Let's look at the modulation and effects tabs. So you can assign modulation and effects to all the slices at once or each one separately. But I think I didn't really cut out the low frequencies when recording this. Let's have a look. Yeah, there's a lot of low end rumble. So let's add an effect. I know that this is gonna affect all my slices because right now I'm working on FX chain 1, and if I go over all my slices I see that they're associated with FX chain 1. So I'm gonna add a digital filter. Slice it around here, I guess. Now you see that this rumble is greatly reduced. So this toggles on and off the effect. If I wanted to modify only one of the samples, I could create a new effects chain. Set this, for example, to this effects chain. Let's give it something pretty obvious, like a delay. You can see that now it tells me which effects chain is associated with each slice. So this is still with the digital filter. But this one has the delay. But I don't want that. Alright, let's delete this one. Yes. Next is modulation. For example, you can create a amp envelope. Again, this works the same with effects. The set here correlates to this one, and I can see that all of them are associated with modulation 1. Let's add an envelope. See how that goes. You can see that here in the top I see how it's going to look like over time. Not really useful at this time. I'll get to this a bit later. Now let's go to the phrases. This part of the program is usually what turns people off from trackers because it looks pretty complex. It looks a bit like programming. I will do my best to try to explain the different parts. So basically, if you think about piano rolls, so just to be clear, this is a piano roll, right? So the notes are vertical, so this is C2, this is C3, and the time is horizontal, right? In trackers, this is turned on its head. The time is vertical, so it starts from 0 and goes down. The notes are just listed by their names, so this is C4 right now. And each one of those vertical columns is like a separate instrument that can trigger a separate note. It's basically like this is MIDI 1, this is MIDI 2, this is like sample 1, sample 2. And this layout allows for very convenient programming of multiple samples at the same time. So for example, if you want to program a beat, this could be the kick, this could be the snare, this could be the hi-hat, and you have all your instruments laid out in one view, as opposed to piano rolls. If this was the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat, it would be pretty difficult to align them together. Usually people add a drum rack and edit it in the same piano roll. Anyways, as you can see now, it's just playing C4. I wanted to play C3. So I'm clicking escape to enter edit mode. You see that this is now red, saying that I'm in edit mode, meaning that every key I press is programmed into the phrase. You see here this hive thing. This represents my keyboard, and it says what happens when I press each key. So if I press Z, I will enter C3. I can change the octave here, So if I move it up, Z would be C4. If I move it down, it would be again C3. You can also use a star and slash on your numpad to change that. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I'm happy with the octave 3. So great. This is the same as just playing the sample. Let's try to get a bit tricky here. Let's say I want to play the sample twice for some reason. I can add it again here. You can see here in this tiny window the sample is being played twice. There's 2 playheads. I can add a third one. Alright. So something that in the past people used to do in trackers, where you didn't have VSTs and stuff like that. So if you wanted to add like an effect, like delay or reverb, you'd have to use something like this. You see, this is this column is the note, and this column is the volume. So by default, it's full volume. Let's say I want this one to play a lot softer. It's barely audible. Let's increase the volume. You can kind of hear it now. I can basically program delay and reverb effects as well. But that's not really powerful. That's not something that you can do in Ableton. So let's look at something that you can do here with samples that is pretty tough to get anywhere else. This third column here, those lines, they represent effects that you can apply to samples. And Renoise and Redux comes with a bunch of effects, and they're all listed here with instructions on how to write them down. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 places to write something, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one is always 0, then there's some letter. The letter says which effect you're putting in, and then there's parameters. So for example, this set arpeggio, XY, that's a bit complicated, let's look at something else. Vibrato, let's use this one. So set vibrato where X equals speed, X is this parameter, and Y equals depth. So I'll just press V, and now I know that I'm in vibrato mode. And let's put some high value so we can hear this. Renoise and Redux use by default hexadecimal values, so it goes from 0 up to F. If you don't know how to read hexadecimal, you can find plenty of tutorials online, but basically it just means that the numbers, instead of being 0 to 9, they're 0 to F, with A, B, C, D, E, F being extra numbers. So F is the topmost number in this format. So this would be the maximum speed, this would be the maximum depth. Let's hear it. You hear this jittering, and then it stops. If I want the vibrato to continue beyond this line, I can just add more vibrato commands, where 0, 0 just means continue the last instruction. Yeah. That's pretty cool, but it's not very useful. Let's try to reduce the speed a bit and reduce the depth, see what we've got. I think I want something a bit faster and less deep. It's pretty subtle. Alright. Now let's say I've added this extra note here. You'll hear that the other one doesn't have the vibrato, so I'm clicking this to turn off this channel so we can just hear this one. This one doesn't have the vibrato, this one does. And I want the vibrato on both. I have this extra FX channel here, which would apply whatever I put there to all the channels. So I'm just gonna copy this vibrato. By the way, to copy, if you just click and drag, automatically it will select the whole channel. But if you alt-click and drag, it will select the minimal selection it can. So here I just clicked on the V, alt-click, then I drag it down in a bitrite just to select the effect and the numbers. I press Ctrl X to copy it. You see me moving like that horizontally. I use the tab to move right and the shift tab to move left. Alright, I'm pasting it here, and now I should have vibrato on both notes. Let's try to audition this one. Yep, and this one. Alright, let's reduce the volume of this one. Another effect that a lot of people probably will find useful is playing the sample backwards. This is simply Command B. Let's put it on both of them. And we'll see here that the playheads will go from end to start. Hear this unwanted click in the beginning. So what I can do is go to the waveform. Click is somewhere here. So I can either select this place and cut it to remove it from the sample. I can also fade out to decrease the volume starting from here up to 0 here. Let's try this one. I can't hear the click anymore, so that's good enough. Also, there's a pretty long silence before the sample starts with this backwards. I can either truncate it or something else I can do. But yeah, the problem is that in Redux you can only have up to 2 effects on a playing note. One is the individual effects and one in the shared effects. Oh no, I can actually add another one. Okay, forget that. So there's another effect called trigger sample slice number. So basically this tells Redux to trigger the sample not from the start but from some point, and these are the possible points. So for example, if I type S10, it will trigger the sample from here. If I press S50, it will trigger the sample from here. What I want to try to do is write S60 and play backwards, so it will just play this one. Let's see how that goes. So you see I wrote S and it says trigger sample slice number 60. So you see that the first playhead is indeed where I wanted it. I have to do it for the second one. Alright. Now, there's a lot of weird details about this program, and I'm trying to cover as much of them as I can as I go along. One of them is that while this says C3 and it triggers this one, which makes sense, if I will use my computer keyboard, so now I'm pressing C and it actually plays C3, and you can see that because there's an orange here that turns on. But if I play C sharp, it will play the second one, the C sharp slice, even though this one says C3. So the way this works is that this is kind of like a relative note. So when I play C3, C3 is the bass note. If, for example, I change this one to G, for example, now let's do something closer to D. So there's a C between C and D, there's C sharp, so 2 notes difference. If I play C3 on my keyboard, it will play C and then D. If I play C sharp, it will play C sharp and D sharp. So this is the bass, this is 2 semitones up, and if I play a semitone up in my keyboard, it will adjust this note accordingly to the sample that's a semitone above the original one that I wrote here. I know that maybe not the best explanation in the world, but just see that I'm playing C now, and then D, and it just preserves the distance between the slices. That's a pretty bad slice. This is when we're in program mode. If we switch to key map mode, this allows me to use multiple presets, phrases. So we have this phrase. of playing backwards. Let's create a new one. This one I want to play forward. Not this slice though. This slice. But I want to do something a bit weird. Let's use the S command. S command triggers sample slice numbers. Right now it's 0, so 0 meaning that it's going to play from the start. I'm going to tell it to retrigger this sample. Right now, every line it will just trigger it from 0. I assume FF is going to be the last part of the sample. So if I write here FF, this will be the last part of the sample. Right now, it's start and here it will play again. However, there's this hidden command in the context menu. So I selected the whole channel of effects. I right click, I go to selection, and I'll select one of those interpolations. What this does is it transitions the numbers from the one at the top of the selection to the one at the bottom of the selection, and just interpolates them according to some mathematical formula. So interpolation is just basically saying, starting from here, going to here, just fill it in right now with the linear values. Jitters. This is, I guess, a bit like granular synthesis. I can also use a logarithmic interpolation, meaning that it starts slow, I guess, and then speeds up. And exponential. Alright, so I have my two phrases. Now in Keymap, this is where it connects to Ableton finally. I have here a piano roll that I can program which phrase to play when I click a keyboard key. So let's take my first phrase. This is the one playing backwards. Drag it on, let's say C4, just for good measure. And I'll take the other one with the jittery thing, drag it on C5. So now I have the backward playing one starting from C4 to B4, and the jittery thing from C5 to B5. If I go close the editor and look at the piano, I can see it mapped here on my keyboard. This should be the samples, the slices itself, and this should be the phrases. Now let's draw some notes in Ableton. Now there's a small gotcha here where this should be C4, right? If I click C4 here, see that it actually plays C6. So for some reason or another, there's a 2-octave differences between how Ableton sees the piano roll and how Redux sees the piano roll. It's pretty easy to compensate. I'll just move this 2 octaves down. Maybe I'll use the jittery thing. I'll just draw some notes. Alright. Great. What's next? I want to show you some pretty cool stuff you can do with the modulation here. As you can see, the modulation can modulate the volume, the panning, and the pitch. And the cool thing here is that you can stack modulators. So right now I have the LFO modulating the pitch. We will hear like a wah thing. Let's hear it. Alright, this is playing backwards. I don't want that. Yeah. Let's make it maybe a bit faster. So that's pretty obvious what's happening. So here I define the LFO wave. I can choose sine, saw, square, and random. But what's cool is that I can add another LFO on top of it and decide how they interact with each other. So this is addition, this is subtraction, this is multiplication, this is division. Let's try to get an interesting shape going. So for example, maybe something like that. Maybe increase the amplitude. Or I can maybe switch here to random, here to square. Let's try to find some cool values. This is pretty weird. And you can of course stack more and more, as many as you want. Let's increase the frequency, maybe decrease the amplitude. It can get pretty crazy. And of course this is a line for all the shapes, for all the slices. What else? One more thing I want to show. I recorded an instrument that has notes at home. It's called a kigonki. It's a bit like a tiny hang drum. Let's start from scratch. So I have this kigonki waveform. Let's play it. I think it's one octave too high. Yeah, this is correct. And let's repeat the slicing thing. So let's try on 0, slice. Okay, that didn't really do anything. Let's increase this to, I don't know, 50. It's a bit better. Okay, maybe for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll just use this. Alright, so now I have these 3 notes, but I want to be able to play all the notes. I want a chromatic scale. So I can go to key zone. First let's get rid of the original sample. Let's destructively render slices. Delete this one. I just have my slices now. So I can go to key zones. The first one, I know it's a G, so I'll move it to G. Now I have to go down an octave to play it. Let's increase it to include G sharp. And Renoise will pitch it to make it fit G sharp. A, do we want to play? No, that's B. So I have the first 2 samples playing 3 notes. Now let's check the second sample, which, to be honest, I'm not sure which note it is. Let's try to check with the tuner. It's a G as well. Okay, so let's move this one to G3. Let's check this one. C. So this must be C4. This one. C sharp. And this one. E. Also C. Interesting. So let's just fill in the gaps here. I'm not sure this will sound good, but just to show the principle. So now I should have a chromatic scale going from G2, and it will choose the closest sample I have each time. Just look out here on the left and see which slice is triggered. Yeah, kind of works. This one, it's not part of it, it's trying to play this. Let's just extend it a bit. Alright. So I converted my 5 notes of Kigonki into a chromatic instrument. I can just use this as is in Ableton. Doesn't sound amazing, but so this is G2, and I need to go 2 below, so it should be G0. Yep. It has this annoying transient in the beginning, so maybe I'll try to add an envelope. Just a bit of an attack. No, that's on pitch. Volume. Let's try this again. Alright, maybe we can add some effects. So the effects here are the built-in effects of Renoise. There's quite a bit of them, but you cannot use, as far as I know, your VSTs here, which is okay because you can just add them after the chain. So let's try to add like a reverb, I guess. Maybe a delay. Alright, covered quite a bit of ground here. There's still a lot of stuff hidden away in this UI, but I think we did a pretty good job. And yeah, tell me what you think. If you like this, I can do more tutorials. I can do a bit slicing tutorial. There's a few of them already on YouTube, but I guess another one never hurts. And thanks for watching.